Well, good afternoon and welcome to you all of you here in the full house of the Carlucci Auditorium, all of you in the overflow space, and not last but not least, all of you who are joining us online. My name is George Moose, and I have the both honor and pleasure of serving as the acting president of the United States Institute of Peace. And we are deeply honored to serve as the co-host for PeaceCon's opening day with the Alliance for Peace Building, which I think can rightly claim to be the world's largest and most important network of peace builders. The partnership between USIP and AFP is, I would argue, critical to elevating the presence of and the dialogue among peace builders, and to charting a way forward for the future of our community. And so we're delighted simply by the sheer number of peace builders joining us here today, which I think is a testament to the importance of these conversations. As most of you certainly in this gathering will know, USIP was established by an act of the US Congress in 1984 as a national, nonpartisan public institution dedicated to helping prevent, de-escalate, and resolve violent conflicts overseas, and to building peace in their aftermath. So this marks the Institute's 40th anniversary, and I've had the pleasure of serving on the board of the Institute for 16 of those 40 years. But the Institute's story goes well back beyond 1984. Indeed, it goes all the way back to the country's first president, George Washington, and the vision he had even then of a national peace university. And indeed, Washington envisioned that this very piece of land on which the USIP headquarters now stands would be the location for his National Peace Academy. So you see how history has a way of coming around. The idea was a recurring theme throughout our history, but it gained momentum in the 1960s and 70s, in part because of the Vietnam War. It found strong support among prominent members of the US Congress, notably among veterans of World War II and the Korean War, serving as they did and wanting to find smarter ways for the United States to deal with conflict around the world. And it was given impetus by a grassroots movement from across the country, something I know well from my days going to school in Iowa and having experienced something called the Iowa Peace Institute, which was part of that movement. And those who drafted the USIP Act in 1984, and I would commend it to you as a prescient document about our field. Those who drafted it did so with the firm conviction that while peaceful conflict is inevitable, violent conflict is not. They set out to build both a constituency for that belief, as well as a community of practitioners who would be equipped to realize it. Thus, from its inception, a core element of USIP's mission has been to educate and train peace builders worldwide with effective tools and approaches to prevent, manage, and resolve violent conflicts. And for the past 40 years, USIP has worked to seed and build the field of peace building through its public education and training efforts. In that time, the Institute has awarded over 2,300 grants to organizations across the US and in over 90 countries around the world to enable them to contribute to the body of knowledge on peace building and conflict resolution. USIP has also worked to integrate peace building into public education curriculums across the US through its Peace Teachers program, which has provided professional development and curriculum support to scores of teachers around the country. USIP also counts some 180 professors from 118 institutions of higher learning in 35 states and 12 countries among its peace professors, a community of practice that works to develop the next generation of peace builders and to advance scholarship in the peace building field. And it has also awarded over 400 peace scholarships for PhD students finishing their dissertations on topics related to conflict resolution, and over 500 grants to universities of higher education in the United States and overseas to develop peace-building research and on-the-ground practitioner projects in conflict zones around the world. And finally, through the Gandhi King Global Academy, USIP provides free and publicly available professional development training and conflict resolution tools, starting with the principle of proper conflict analysis. Now, looking at the community that is assembled here today, I have no doubt that the Institute's founders would be proud and gratified to see the fruits of their vision and the community that has been built around it. For the past 12 years, PeaceCon has convened the peacebuilding field annually, from the grassroots to the top levels of government, to put peace at the forefront of our agenda and to reflect on the state of the world and to find a way forward by continuous learning and improving of our practices. Today's conference is contextualized by a world experiencing a full-scale war in the heart of Europe, a deepening conflict in the Middle East, and growing threats to peace and security around the world. We are seeing an alarming evolution in the drivers of conflict, including declines in social cohesion, weak social contracts, and increased vulnerabilities to climate and other shocks. And compounding these trends is the emergence of new technologies and other disruptors, as well as new state and non-state actors posing new challenges and new complexities and new opportunities. In short, the landscape of conflict and peace building has never been more complex. Where we face an arduous challenge, we also see a plethora of opportunity. The case for global peace and conflict prevention is as urgent and as compelling today as it has ever been. But during this conference, we will be called upon to ask ourselves if our current approaches and strategies and practices are sufficient to meeting current needs and current challenges. We need to consider whether our peace-building toolbox is still fit for purpose. Are there demands and expectations that are not currently being met? And if so, what tools, techniques, approaches, and practices do we need to develop to meet them? I am truly inspired to be here today in a room full of peace builders who want to make the world a better place. And I know that you bring that commitment and dedication to the conversations in which you will be engaging over the next 3 days as we consider how to strengthen the impact of the peace building field. And now I have the pleasure of inviting to the floor Alan Fitz, the chair of the board and executive committee member at the Alliance for Peacebuilding. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador. And good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to this year's PeaceCon Status Quo No More. Before I begin, though, I do want to thank the whole team at AFP for the tremendous work that got us here today. We're looking at 3 days, over 65 sessions, hundreds of speakers. It's a huge lift and a huge amount of effort that goes into pulling off an event like this. So I just want to thank them up front for the tremendous efforts that got us to this point today. My name is Alan Fitz. I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Alliance for Peacebuilding Board of Directors. In addition to working with AFP, I'm the Vice President for Strategy and Operations at American Express, where I help oversee our communication strategy, corporate policy, and also our corporate philanthropy through the American Express Foundation. And while I do have some background in peace building, I had a past career in government, having worked at both the White House and the State Department during the Obama administration. You may be asking yourself, what sense does it make for someone from the financial services sector to be welcoming you here today? It's a fair question, and in fact, I get this question from my peers in the corporate world often. What does peace building have to do with us? But my answer is always the same. Peace building is everybody's business, and especially the private sector, and especially now more than ever. Over the next several days, we'll be diving into this relationship in further detail, but it's clear that we're at a critical juncture globally. Violent conflict is increasing around the world, and while the who, what, where, when, and why of conflict is ever evolving, the impact, the devastating effects of violence, social fragmentation, and disenfranchisement of vulnerable people is universal. Conflict impacts elections, it impacts sustainable development, it impacts our health, it impacts communities and individuals alike, and for companies, it impacts the bottom line. So let's be clear, the lifeblood of the private sector is economic growth, but economic growth relies on a host of factors that are fundamental aims of the peace-building field: stability, rule of law, social cohesion. Unstable environments can disrupt operations, supply chains, and market access. Conflict leads to unpredictability. Unpredictable business conditions increases risks and raises costs. By supporting peace-building initiatives, companies have the opportunity to contribute to a more stable business climate, which in turn promotes long-term profitability. Additionally, when communities are not embroiled with managing conflict, they're enabled to allocate resources towards things like education, healthcare, and infrastructure, and this helps businesses too. And in today's business environment, where companies are feeling the pressure from a variety of stakeholders to do the right thing and be good corporate citizens, engaging in these efforts is an opportunity to not only enhance their reputation, but fundamentally protect themselves, the communities they care about, all while building a more resilient operating environment. It's a win-win that I think is often overlooked by this field, and one that I hope to allocate significant time and effort to advancing. I'm excited by the prospect of being here and engaging with you all on these important issues. I'm excited to help spread this message that peace building is everyone's issue, and we need all facets of community to join hands, work together to make progress. Over the next 3 days, I hope you all take the opportunity to listen and learn from the many facilitated discussions and panels we have planned, network with each other, meet your peers, connect, and perhaps find ways to collaborate in the future, and ask some tough questions, both of yourselves and of the organizations you represent, and also of each other. Building peace is a long, hard, and treacherous journey, and we need each other to achieve it. You'll see me again tomorrow. I'm going to put in a plug for my session tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. When I welcome Kirsty Graham, the CEO of Edelman, who'll be presenting the Edelman Trust Barometer. It's going to be a fantastic presentation and discussion around factors and players that bring communities together and also those that divide us. And now, thank you again for being here. I hope you enjoy the next few days at PeaceCon, and it's my pleasure to introduce Liz Hume, the Executive Director of Alliance for Peacebuilding.
Thank you so much for coming today. And I'm always still overwhelmed by the fact that we're here in person. But I also do want to acknowledge everyone that is online, that's from around the globe here at PeaceCon. This is the 12th annual PeaceCon. And last year, it's not 40 years like USIP, but AFP's been around a little more than 20 years. And last year, we got a group of those leaders, those founders of PeaceCon, and we did a podcast. And one of their memories was that it started with 20 people. They came together, it was kind of a bit of a retreat. They came together to talk about, are we in a field? How do we advance this field? What do we do? So I want us to stop and think, like, look how far we've come, right? That was 20 years ago. And we have to work together collectively, and that is what AFP is about. But first, I want to say how thankful we are for this incredible partnership with USIP. We couldn't do this without you. The brain trust, the partnership, and I really want to mention Corinne Graff, a friend, a partner. We're so thankful. I also want to profusely thank the AFP team. Everyone always says to me, you're really only that big? We're not a big team. This past summer, like many of you, I got COVID, and I really struggled. It was pretty humbling how awful I felt. And this team repeatedly would say to me, Liz, we've got this, we've got you, go rest. So I will be forever grateful to them for their humor, their support, and their dedication and hard work. So please thank them when you see them. But most importantly, again, AFP belongs to you. It's your organization. And we are so much stronger collectively. So if you are not a member, join. We can only do this together. So I'll start off and talk a little bit. So PeaceCon, we go back and forth, we debate, what should we do? And we talk about this before, months before. So we don't know what's gonna happen. Well, when we were talking with our incredible board and our USIP colleagues, really the theme around what my dear friend Hebe Cassis likes to talk about from Principles for Peace, our fed-upness. Really our fed-upness. And what does that mean? Well, we're hitting 2018, we hit record-breaking global violent conflict. We all know that, social cohesion declining rapidly. And we do have leaders that talk about conflict prevention and peace building. The UN Secretary General says prevention is not a novel concept, and that the UN's founders asked the organization to focus on prevention, and that is the international community needs to invest more in prevention. President Biden, when he was putting out the global fragility strategy plans, said, these plans represent a commitment to global peace and security with the United States working alongside an array of local partners towards shared long-term goals of conflict prevention and peace building. Sometimes it's hard, right? There are these prevention promises. We don't see peace building as a priority, conflict prevention resourced, and we have to do better. We have to hold these leaders accountable. But as the peace building field, we have to also look inside ourselves and ask us, what do we need to change? So that's where the status quo no more comes into play. How do we stop using ineffective status quo problem-solving skills, tools, narratives? Because we have to change social behavior, these norms around peace building and conflict prevention. So it's hard. It's really, really hard because our brains are not designed to do this. Mary Fitzduff, who is a longtime champion in this field, she lives in Ireland, Northern Ireland now. She wrote an incredible book, Our Brains at War. She always says, we have the ability to understand that our brains are not designed for this long-term planning. We're short-termism. We want our dopamine hit. But we have to stop and say, we have to radically change the way we think and work. And we can do this. We have the ability to change, to notice it, and to change radically the way we think. So, with everything happening today, it is so hard sometimes. It's really easy to be cynical, throw in the white towel, say, what am I doing? I need to change careers. And I know many of you talked to me about this. One day last spring, I was having a particularly worn out week. You can name your reason. We all know the conflict stats. We all know what's happening in the world. And Ambassador McGale showed up at AFP. We were sitting having coffee, chatting, and he was so excited about this talk that just happened at Loyola University. This incredible, the former president of Ireland was there, and the students were they couldn't stop talking about it. And Liz, you got to read these essays. I was a bit skeptical. I don't know if you know this. I was trying to humor you, and I was like, He kept shoving them at me, and I was like, oh, finally, all right, I'm gonna read these essays. My jaw dropped. I kept reading them. I was like, wait. And I was saying, what these students were saying out loud. I was grabbing your hands. It was breathtaking. I had tears in my eyes because these students, on this day when I was feeling worn out, and a bit cynical, these students so eloquently reminded me why we work on these issues, that it's possible to grow up in a society that is torn apart by violent conflict and grow up to become and be known as the trust-building, bridge-building president. And that's what we have to remember, and it's hard at times, I know. So if you see Miguel and he's pushing some papers in front of you, read them, because I think about if I hadn't done that day, I wouldn't have said, oh my gosh, we need this person to come and speak at PeaceCon.